What would you do if you were walking home from the corner store after picking up a pack of cigarettes? As you stroll back, you start to pack your cigarettes. You open the pack, toss the wrapper aside, and pull back the lip of the box. You take one cigarette, flip it upside down, and place it back into the pack. Then, you remove another cigarette, put it in your mouth, and tuck the pack into your shirt pocket. Pulling your lighter from your right front pants pocket, you flick it to ignite the flame. Just as you bring the cigarette to your lips, a sense of unease washes over you. You move your hand away from your face, take the cigarette out of your mouth, and squint, convinced you might be seeing things. Curious, you walk toward what has caught your attention and bend down to investigate. To your surprise, you find a bundle of $100 bills, about $4,000 in total. You glance around, noting that there are no cars or pedestrians in sight. The street is eerily quiet. Deciding to take the money, you quickly pocket it and continue your walk home, a mix of excitement and anxiety coursing through you. The following day, you hear a knock at your door. Peering through the peephole, you see a stranger standing there. "Who is it?" you ask cautiously. "James Billiard," he replies. You ask again, "What do you want?" "I believe you have something of mine," James says, his tone firm. Confused, you respond, "I don't know you, so how could I have something of yours?" Suddenly, you hear the man on the other side of the door jiggling the doorknob, but it's locked. You rush to the couch, reach under the cushion for your pistol, and return to the door. "Hey, buddy, get away from my door or I won't be responsible for what happens next," you warn. "And what will you do?" James retorts. "Try it again," you reply defiantly. "Try what?" asks James, a hint of mockery in his voice. "Exactly what I thought," you say, turning away and walking toward your bedroom. Just then, you hear a loud crash behind you. You turn to see a man stumbling into your living room, and behind him, your door is shattered, the doorknob and frame still intact. You raise your pistol toward the man who just crashed into your living room, the metal cold and heavy in your grip. With a swift motion, you cock the gun, the sound echoing in the tense silence. "What the hell, dude?" you exclaim, your heart racing. The intruder stands up straight, his posture rigid and threatening. He begins to walk slowly toward you, each step deliberate. With a calmness that chills you, he reaches behind him with his right hand and pulls out a .44 Magnum revolver. The weapon gleams under the dim light as he pulls the hammer back, a harsh click slicing through the air. He places his index finger on the trigger, his expression unwavering. In that moment, the stakes couldn't be higher. It's essential to understand the difference between pulling the trigger and squeezing it. Pulling the trigger can cause the barrel of the gun to jump, resulting in an inaccurate shot as the barrel aims upward, potentially missing your target. In contrast, squeezing the trigger requires a slow, steady pressure that allows for better control, minimizing any upward jerk of the barrel. This small difference could mean the difference between life and death in this high-stakes encounter. James raised his gun, his heart pounding, and pulled the trigger. The weapon jerked upward, and a bullet ricocheted off the ceiling, sending dust and debris cascading down. In a panic, I cocked my own gun and squeezed the trigger, hitting him squarely in the left shoulder. He spun around and stumbled, desperately trying to regain his balance as he fell against the doorframe. In the distance, I could hear police sirens growing closer, their wailing echoing through the streets. I quickly approached him, kicking his gun out of his reach, feeling a rush of adrenaline. "Get on the ground," I commanded, and he complied, laying flat on his stomach. I secured his hands behind his back with zip ties, ensuring he was immobilized. Moments later, I heard a firm knock on the door. "Who is it?" the man asked, his voice shaky. "This is Officer Burke and Officer Locke. We received reports of gunshots coming from your residence. Open the door," came the authoritative reply. The man unlocked the door and hesitantly unbolted it, revealing the two officers standing ready at his threshold. "Come in," he gestured, stepping aside. The officers entered cautiously, their eyes scanning the room. One reached for his notepad while the other began asking questions. "Did you hear gunshots?" Officer Burke inquired. "Yes, I did," the man replied, gesturing toward the chaos behind him. "There's a guy on the floor there, face down and zip-tied. His name is James Billiard. He came barging through my front door, crashing it in as he brandished a gun at me." He pointed at the gaping hole where the door had been. "I managed to get him on the ground after he shot at me. Look at the bullet hole in the ceiling. I secured him and tied him up before you arrived." "What's your name?" Officer Locke asked, scribbling notes. "Jake Smith," he answered, his voice steadying. "And your birthday?" "October 5, 1974. Your social security number? 680-61-1937. Address? 5521 Maple Street, apartment 1738. The officers exchanged glances. "All right, Mr. Billiard, you're under arrest for discharging a firearm and unlawful possession of a firearm on school property," Officer Burke stated, noting the school just across the street. "We'll have a detective come to collect more information, and you'll be booked shortly. You'll get a case number and a court date for your preliminary hearing. but you won't have to appear in person at the arraignment." As the officers secured James, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. This man had posed a serious threat, and now he was apprehended. That night, Jake lay in bed, his mind racing. After a while, he swung his legs over the side and stood up, glancing around to ensure no one was watching. He crouched down between the mattress and the box spring, retrieving 2 stacks of crisp $100 bills. He counted meticulously, 100, 200, 300, 400, 500. All the way to $4,000, no marks, no tracing, just brand new bills. In this small town, an unusual law known as finders keepers allowed anyone who found lost money to claim it as their own if no one else had come forward within 30 minutes. Jake knew the law well. It was his secret advantage. He realized that James, in his frantic attempts to retrieve what he thought was his, had unwittingly lost everything. Jake carefully tucked the stack of cash back under his mattress, ensuring it was hidden from prying eyes. He then settled back into the warmth of his bed, pulling the blanket up snugly around him. After finding a comfortable position, he closed his eyes, hoping to drift into sleep. Yet, rest eluded him. He rolled onto his back, draping his arm over his eyes, and tried once more to lull himself to sleep. But the haunting phrase echoed in his mind, "You have what's mine." Frustrated, he tossed the covers aside, sitting up abruptly. His legs dangled over the edge of the bed, his hands resting heavily on his knees. He stared blankly at the floor, replaying the chaotic events of the day. Finding the $4,000 on the street felt like a stroke of luck, yet the absurdity of the local law loomed over him. A finder's keeper's rule stipulating that if an owner didn't claim their lost item within 30 minutes, it legally belonged to the finder. Then there was the terrifying encounter with James, who had stormed to his door, banging frantically, desperate and dangerous. James had brandished a .44 Magnum, aiming it at Jake's face, the threat palpable in the air. Jake's mind raced, overwhelmed by the day's events, the unexpected windfall, the gun in his face, and the police officers who had arrived to arrest James in his living room. All he wanted was a pack of cigarettes, yet he found himself entangled in a web of chaos. He needed to talk to someone, but who could he trust? The only person who came to mind was his best friend, Jamal Williams. They had been inseparable since 5th grade at Anna Kirchgater Elementary School. Glancing at the clock, Jake noticed it was 12:12 am. "I wonder if he's awake," he muttered to himself, breaking the silence of the room. He grabbed his cell phone from the nightstand and dialed Jamal's number. On the second ring, his friend answered, "What's up, bro?" "Hey, it's Jake. I need to talk to you," he replied, urgency in his voice. "What's up?" Jamal asked, sensing the tension. "Come over here, I need to show you something," Jake urged. "All right, I'll be there in 5 minutes." Jake hung up, placing the phone back on the nightstand. He stood and made his way to the kitchen, brewing a strong cup of coffee to steady his nerves. He unlocked the front door, anticipation building within him. Exactly 5 minutes later, Jamal walked in, and they exchanged a quick, familiar handshake. "What's up? What did you want to show me?" Jamal asked as he settled into a chair. With a deep breath, Jake pulled 2 bundles of cash from his pocket and held them out, watching Jamal's expression shift from confusion to shock. "What's that?" Jamal asked, his brow furrowing. $4,000, Jake replied simply. "Where did you get it from?" Jamal inquired, his voice tinged with disbelief. "I found it," Jake stated, his heart racing as he recalled the moment he stumbled upon the money. Jamal stared at him, momentarily speechless, his hand raised as if trying to process the information. "No one came back for it?" he finally asked, disbelief coloring his tone. "Yeah, 3 hours later," Jake confirmed, anxiety creeping back into his voice, "but I don't understand how James knew where I lived." "He tried to break into my door." Jamal stood up, pointing toward the door. "Is that why your door looks like that?" Jake nodded, recalling the fear that had gripped him during the encounter. "No one was around when I found the money. I just wanted to get a pack of cigarettes. As I was lighting one, I saw the cash lying on the ground. I counted it. Every bill was a crisp $100. The weight of the day's events hung heavily in the air as they both contemplated the implications of Jake's discovery. Jamal paced the living room floor, his footsteps echoing in the quiet space, while Jake stood nearby, a mix of anxiety and anticipation etched on his face. "He pulled a gun on you?" Jamal asked, his voice a blend of disbelief and concern. Jake gestured toward the ceiling, his finger hovering over a small, dark hole. "Is that a bullet hole?" Jamal inquired, his eyes widening as he followed Jake's gaze. "Yep," Jake replied, his voice steady despite the memory. "He tried to shoot me." Jamal's expression shifted from concern to excitement. "But you know I always say squeeze, don't pull." James had pulled the trigger, and Jake's heart raced as he recalled the moment. "What happened?" Jamal pressed, his curiosity piqued. "I shot him," Jake responded, the weight of his words hanging in the air. Jamal's face lit up, a wide grin breaking across his features. He covered his mouth with one hand and began jumping up and down, the thrill of the moment overtaking him. "You shot him, that's my bro," he exclaimed, slapping Jake's hand in celebration, the tension momentarily forgotten. But as the excitement faded, Jamal paused, his brow furrowing. "So what happened after you shot him?" Jake's expression turned serious. "Someone called the police. They asked if I heard a shooting, and I pointed to James, who was already lying on the ground, zip-tied." "Oh, so he's in custody now?" Jamal asked, his excitement giving way to concern. "Yeah," Jake confirmed, "but what do you want to do next?" Jake shrugged, frustration creeping back in. "He'll be out in a few days. I don't understand why he didn't come to retrieve the $4,000 within 30 minutes. Why wait 3 hours? How did he even know where I live? Did he follow me? Did he just wait around?" Jamal listened intently. Although he hadn't spent much time with Jake over the last few years, their phone conversations had kept their bond alive. He knew Jake had been busy at home, modifying the walls, creating hidden compartments, and installing secret doors and latches. One thing was clear: Jake Smith was no ordinary guy. A veteran of 3 tours in Iraq, he had served as a sniper and held the rank of captain. Even out of the military, the soldier in him remained. Jamal was aware of Jake's past, having been honorably discharged after 2 tours alongside him, while Jake had chosen to stay for one more. "Remember I said I was making secret compartments?" Jake asked, a glint of mischief in his eye. "Yeah, I remember," Jamal replied, curiosity ignited. "Let me show you," Jake said, moving toward the coffee table. He pressed a hidden button, and with a soft whir, a panel behind the TV slid open. The television receded into the entertainment center, revealing a hidden wall filled with an arsenal. AK-16s, AK-47s, sniper rifles, handguns, and pistols. "Whoa," Jamal breathed, eyes wide with astonishment. Jake led him into the kitchen, repeating the process. Below the bar, another fake wall vanished, unveiling a cache of even more weapons. Machine guns, Tommy guns, grenades, and an assortment of knives and swords, each gleaming ominously in the dim light. "What the hell, Jake?" Jamal exclaimed, a mix of awe and concern flooding his voice. Jake shrugged, a slight smile playing on his lips, just in case. Jake had every reason to be suspicious about how James knew where he lived. James Billiard was no ordinary character. He was a low-ranking drug dealer with connections that stretched far beyond the streets. Beneath his unremarkable exterior lay the shadowy reputation of a soldier for a ruthless kingpin known as El Mata Amigos, which ominously translates to friend killer. James was already teetering on thin ice with his boss, a precarious position further complicated by his history of losing significant sums of money. Just a year ago, he had inexplicably dropped a bag containing $20,000 in cash, an embarrassing blunder that had nearly cost him his life. Now, as he sat in the holding cell waiting to be booked, the cold metal bench beneath him felt like a reminder of his failures. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting harsh shadows across the cramped space. As he waited, frustration bubbled within him, but then a thought struck. He remembered a number that could bail him out of this mess. With renewed determination, James walked to the jail phone, its grimy surface a stark contrast to the crisp bills he was used to handling. He picked up the receiver, feeling the weight of his choices pressing down on him. Dialing 91655577879, he listened as the phone rang. On the second ring, a woman's voice answered, her tone cool and professional. "Hello," James felt a flicker of hope. This could be his way out, but he knew he had to tread carefully. The stakes were high, and failure was not an option. Back at Jake's place, he and Jamal were meticulously going over a tactical plan, the atmosphere thick with tension and uncertainty. They were acutely aware that they didn't know what kind of person James Billiard truly was, nor the nature of the organization he was involved with. Just as James was unaware that Jake was a veteran of 3 tours in Iraq, Jamal had served 2, and neither of them knew that Jake was an exceptional sniper, a fact that set him apart. He had never missed a shot, not even by accident. Over the course of 2 days they prepared, gathering supplies and strategizing. They decided to bring in one more person to join their mission. Jamal picked up the phone and called Sergeant Ozark, an old friend from their military days. As Jamal explained the situation, Jake grabbed the phone to share details about the city laws regarding finders keepers, which could complicate matters. Jamal returned to the call, emphasizing the need for an additional team member to maximize their chances against James. Sergeant Ozark, with a tone of seriousness, said he would look into James Billiard's background. It was a risky move, given Ozark's own checkered past. He had been dishonorably discharged for taking bribes and concealing sensitive information related to a major murder case. An hour later, Sergeant Ozark called Jamal back, his voice low. "James Billiard works for El Mata Amigos." Jake and Jamal exchanged wide-eyed glances, the name striking fear in their hearts. They knew the reputation of El Mata Amigos, the friend killer, was a figure of nightmarish proportions. Jake sank into a chair, grappling with the realization that their plan might need to be far more elaborate to contend with such dangerous players. "Do you think the tactical plan Lasar TPL will work against James and El Mata Amigos?" Jake asked, anxiety lacing his voice. "It could," Sergeant Ozark replied, "but not on its own. You'll need to combine it with Tactical Plan Bail, TPB. Together, they could be effective. TPL is designed to make it look like they're surrendering, while TPB is meant to ambush the target. To execute both successfully, you'll need more than just the two of you." Jamal interjected, "Will you help us?" Sergeant Ozark paused, then said, "Let me finish. You'll need 4 to 5 people to pull off both strategies effectively." Jake and Jamal immediately thought of Murray Murphy, a hulking figure from their past. Standing at an imposing 6'8" and weighing 475 pounds of solid muscle, Murray had a gentle demeanor that belied his size. He had saved both of their lives in Iraq, and his presence would be an asset. His wife was only 4'11", but their 3 grown sons had made their own marks. One was a soldier following in his father's footsteps, while another was Captain Jones in NCIS, and the youngest, Lieutenant Dan, was a government agent. All 3 were tall and formidable, standing between our and 6'5". "Let me contact my sons and see if they're available," Ozark said, his voice firm. What felt like 3 days was actually only 8 hours when Sergeant Ozark called Jamal's phone again. "My boys are in, send me your location and I'll have them there. They'll be leaving tomorrow at 600. Jamal quickly shared Jake's address. At 5:45 a.m., 2 men in tactical gear stood in front of Jake and Jamal.